Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD tonight. Sorry, I'm running a little bit late. I kind of had a bit of a long patient day here, and so just getting started here a bit late, but we'll take as much time as we can. So the way that these webinars work, you create them. Every week is different because you create them with your questions. I see some familiar names on my participant message board tonight, so I know there's a number of people here that I've seen here before, and I'm glad to have you back. For those of you that are new here, you write questions to me and create the webinar. And the way you do that is over here on the right-hand side of the screen, all the way down at the bottom, is a chat box. Go ahead and write your question to me there. I only ask that you hit the enter key one time during a question, because if you hit it more than once, it actually creates separate questions that get hard for me to follow on my side of the webinar screen. So as many of you know, I create recordings of these every week, and I'm doing that again tonight. If all goes well, I will have that ready for you tomorrow morning, somewhere between 6 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. And there's a variety of places you can find it, actually. Number one, I'll email you a link when I have it all ready for you. Secondly, you can find it on the webinar's recording page at treatlyme.net, which I've now stopped calling the Treat Lyme book. I just relabeled it as Treat Lyme. That's all we're calling the website now, is Treat Lyme. The other place you can find it is on my Facebook page, which is Facebook.com/Treat Lyme. And then finally, you can find a copy of it at my supplement store, Marty Ross MD Supplements, on the homepage all the way at the bottom. If you scroll down, you can also find it there. And that URL for there is treatlyme.com. And then finally, the last way you can find it is actually going to my YouTube channel. So there's a variety of ways you can find this recording if you happen to miss something tonight. I want to make that information as available as I can to everyone. So let's go ahead and get started here. One of the things I'm going to do during the webinar tonight is I'll be posting the questions on the screen so you can see them. But keep in mind, sometimes in the recorded version of it, it doesn't show up so well. So I also like to go ahead and read those questions. And the other reason I read that is at some point in time, I might actually just take these recordings and turn them into podcast. And so I'll need to be able to read those questions if I ever get around to converting a lot of these into podcasts as well, too. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, Brenda. Let's see. Thank you, Dr. Ross. I have Lyme and Bartonella. I have shingles. What can I do to boost my immune system? I'm getting ready to start minocycline. What other antibiotic or herbs do I need to add? Can't take Cemento. All right. So, Brenda, there's some basic steps that are part of boosting your immune system, and some of these don't even really involve taking anything, although some of them actually do involve taking some herbs too. And these are actually steps you'll find in the Ross Lyme Support Protocol. So that's my treatment guideline. And the first few steps specifically are things that are going to boost your immune system. Okay, so number one, get sleep. Okay, and if that means you've got to take some herbs to get sleep, or you've got to take prescription medicines to get sleep, you want to try to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. And I know in Lyme that can be really hard to do. That's why sometimes you have to take things to get sleep. But if you can get 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night, that does two things. It does help turn your immune system on. Secondly, it helps lower inflammation chemicals called cytokines that are being overproduced by your white blood cells when they're trying to fight infection. And those cytokines, when they get overproduced, actually suppress the immune system. Now, it's an interesting thing because cytokines actually can be good. So when a white blood cell sees an infection like Lyme, or sees too many yeast in your intestines, or sees those mold toxins that get stuck in some of our patients, it makes cytokines to get rid of those. And so cytokines cause more white blood cells to be made. They draw the white blood cells to the infection, and they help them work better. Okay, so that's in the right amount. Cytokines actually turn on the immune system. But when they're made in excess, as they often are in Lyme, they actually suppress the immune system. Okay, so getting sleep is one way to lower those. Okay, second thing that you can do to help boost your immune system is lower the cytokines. And so what I like to use is the herb called curcumin. Curcumin is a component of the Indian seasoning turmeric, and you're going to wind up taking a 500 milligram pill 3 times a day. I suggest doing it as a liposomal variety, which means it's microscopically wrapped in fat. When you microscopically wrap your curcumin in fat, it increases its absorption. The reason that's a good idea idea to do is that actually curcumin and turmeric, which is what it comes from, are just horribly absorbed. So you want to increase the chances of getting those in you, okay? So what curcumin does is it gets inside your white blood cells and turns down their cytokine overproduction, okay? All right, number 3, support your adrenal glands, all right? So adrenals are supposed to make normal amounts of cortisol that give your immune system a kick, help support your immune system, all right? And in Lyme disease, because all these cytokines often our hormonal systems like the thyroid and like the adrenals are not working correctly, all right? So one herb that you can take that supports the adrenals as well as supports thyroid, actually, and this is according to animal studies, is ashwagandha. That's an herb that I mentioned in my treatment protocol. And you want to take it as a 400 milligram pill. I often recommend you take 2 pills first thing in the morning and 2 pills between 1 and 2. Okay. All right. So those are just some basic steps. Get sleep, lower cytokines, take ashwagandha. Okay. Third thing you've got to make sure that you're doing is check to make sure you don't have too many yeast in your intestines. And if you do have too many yeast in your intestines, you're going to want to knock those down too, because guess what they do? They trigger more cytokines, right? So you want to lower those down as well too. Okay, now, specifically because you have shingles, that means your immune system is having a hard time keeping your viruses under control. And one of the things that can be very useful at helping with viruses is to take the herb called reishi mushrooms. So mushrooms, but the variety called reishi mushrooms, all right? And so I like using a product which is actually called reishi Gano, that's Gano, and I would do it as a 400 milligram pill 3 times a day. And what those reishi mushrooms do is they actually turn on the cellular part of your immune system, the cells that gobble up infections and fight viruses and even fight Lyme. They turn them on, okay? So I'd probably, especially if you got active viruses, I would go about doing that as well too. All right. All right. Now I'm going to do a screen share here because I want to show you a number of things. Hopefully our screen share is going to work right tonight. Treat Lyme book. I've now rebranded it as Treat Lyme. And what you're going to see probably in the next month or two, I'm having the whole site redesigned to make it easier to find things, okay? I realize this is hard. This currently is a WordPress site that I operate all on my own. No one has professionally developed this for me. I've done this, and frankly, I think it could be done better. So I've hired people to help me with this, all right? But yeah, this is the new logo, and eventually you're going to see it attached to a whole new site, all right? So mention my treatment protocol. You'll find it under the treatment protocol tab here. And I call it the Ross Lyme support protocol. And yeah, I would go ahead and take a look at it. So the first thing, again, I mentioned is get sleep. And I give you some prescription and herbal options here. I also have a whole article about what happens if the herbal and prescription options aren't working. Take a look at my article called Sleep 101, The Basics, okay, which has a bunch of other ideas for you too. Number 2, you want to get your get the cytokines. And I mentioned that to you already. Be on that ashwagandha. I mentioned that one to you too. Okay, but take a look. These are essential steps that you can do. Okay, all right. Then, in terms of that question you asked, how do you boost your immune system? Well, in between webinars, if you're ever wondering what to do about something, take a look in the Treat Lyme book. Okay, take a look under the chapters tab here, and there's a whole chapter I have on immune system. And in here is where I have written articles about things you can do to boost your immune system, okay? So one of the things I talk about is Immune System 101, The Basics. And those are kind of the steps that I just talked about with you. But if you want to see them written down, that's the article that you would find them in too, okay? All right, and then finally, let me see here. That product that I mentioned, the reishi mushroom product, actually any of the herbs I recommend tonight, if you want to see what brand I'm using, or if you're looking for a source to get them, feel free to use my supplement store, which is Marty Ross MD Supplements. And so the product I recommend is this reishi Gano product. The company that makes this is called JHS Naturals, and they do a really good hot water extraction, pulling the active ingredients into hot water, leaving the garbage that sometimes comes with mushrooms behind. So there's no mold on it. There's no toxins that get transported with it too. Okay, so this is the product that I use with my patients here at the Healing Arts Partnership. All right, and again, anyone can buy from Marty Ross MD supplements. It's I'm trying to gradually turn this into the source that people would turn to for their Lyme disease supplement needs, no matter where they go to get treated. All right, let me go back here. All right. It's all right. And good luck to you. Hello, McKay. Let's see. What can you tell me about mast cell activation syndrome? Is this similar to what you talk about with cytokine issues? You have mentioned you don't trust DNA connections for some diagnoses. What test will confirm this is for sure what I am dealing with? Thank you for all you do. All right. So I think I just want to answer that last part of your question. If you're referring to what confirms mast cell activation syndrome, there really aren't good tests. I mean, there's some tests we can do, but they're not reliable. And so you're really going to decide if you have mast cell activation syndrome based on your symptoms. All right. So let's talk briefly about mast cell activation syndrome. And this is one of those things I've got to get an article put together for Treat Lyme. It's getting a lot of attention. All right, so what are mast cells? So mast cells are a type of immune cell that traditionally in medicine we've thought of as only being involved in allergies. Okay, and what we know happens is when you're allergic to something like yeast or pollens or your cat or your dog, dander or pollens or whatever we're allergic to lands on a mast cell. And it causes those mast cells to make and release what are known as histamines, okay? So histamines, many of you know, when you have allergies, you take antihistamines, right? So histamines, when they get released into your bloodstream, can give rashes, can give itching of the skin, can give hives, can make you feel very fatigued. Those are histamines, okay? So when trying to consider, all right, so then the other thing, though, that happens in mast cell activation syndrome, and this is where the science has been changing, is we now know that mast cells are involved in much more than allergies, all right? In fact, mast cells actually produce a lot of cytokines as well, too, those cytokines you mentioned that I mentioned earlier, all right? So in fact, what happens with mast cells is when you have chronic infections, they get turned on not only to be making cytokines, but they also get turned on too much so and start making excess histamines, all right? In fact, they start becoming overreactive to things that you might be allergic to. And in addition to pumping out cytokines, they start pumping out all these histamines, all right? So a person that you might start thinking of has mast cell activation syndrome is somebody that suddenly becomes very sensitive to everything, okay? Sensitive to foods, sensitive to chemicals in the environment. And they start maybe getting itching, or they might start having lots of runny noses, or they might start having hives or rashes that you see when somebody is allergic, okay? So they start looking very, quote unquote, allergic to everything, all right? That's mast cell activation syndrome. And you can diagnose it clinically. You don't need necessarily have blood tests to do it, all right? Now, what do you do for it? Well, first of all, you want to decrease anything that might be triggering allergies, all right? So that may mean doing something called an elimination diet. What an elimination diet is you go on this special stripped back diet that removes about anything that anyone has ever had allergies to. And you stop using those things for about 3 weeks and you see if you feel better. And if you do after 3 weeks, you slowly start adding items back in one at a time, okay? So if you're looking for a sample diet, just Google elimination diet and you'll find what one of these diets look like with instructions, okay? They're pretty easy to find on the internet, all right? Second thing, and I like doing elimination diets better than doing food allergy testing. I think they're more precise actually, okay? All right. All right. The other thing you want to do, you want to start stabilizing those mast cells. And the way you do that, one thing you can use is the herb called quercetin. That's Quercetin. Quercetin's a 250 milligram pill. I like using a Thorne product for that. and you wind up doing 2 of those 3 times a day. Okay, now quercetin is a mast cell stabilizer. It stabilizes the mast cells so they're not releasing as many of these histamines. Okay. The other herb that I would recommend doing is an herb called luteolin, and it's Luteolin, luteolin, and 100 milligrams twice a day. It also helps stabilize mast cells. Those are the main 2 herbs that I have somebody use with it, okay? Now, in addition to using those herbs, there are prescription medicines you can use. One is something called would be your antihistamines like a Zyrtec or a Claritin, any of those type of antihistamines that you, non-sedating antihistamines that you would use for allergies, you can use for this, okay? You can also use other medicines that we often will use to lower stomach acid, like Tagamet, can sometimes be useful for this as well too. And then finally, there's another prescription medicine called cromolyn, which is pretty expensive, but you can do a pill form of it. Or you can do an inhaled version of it too. But cromolyn is a prescription mast cell stabilizer, all right? And then finally, if those are not effective, then you can sometimes use something called Singulair. Singulair is an anti-inflammatory that helps with the allergic reactions that we sometimes can use too. But usually where I'll start is try to remove yourself from the environment of things that are triggering you. See if it really is coming from food allergies by doing one of those elimination diets that I just talked with you about. A second thing you might want to do is make sure you don't have too many yeast in you that could be triggering allergic reactions within the gut as well too. And then the herbs, and the main 2 herbs I would use are quercetin and luteolin. If those aren't working well enough, then I would add one of the non-sedating antihistamines like a Zyrtec or a Claritin. If that's not working well enough, then you might want to add cromolyn. And then if that's not working well enough, then go ahead and add Singulair in, okay? And with that, I think I have just created a video article, although I'll come up with doses in a written article that will accompany this video that I will wind up putting as my mast cell activation article. Let me do... Oh, I know. There's one. I do want to do a quick screen share here just to show you one thing here, because I mentioned in terms of yeast, take a look at my chapters tab, and there's this article called yeast, okay, or chapter called yeast. Take a look in here. If you're wondering if you have too many yeast, take a look at my article called A Silent Problem, Do You Have Yeast? And I walk you through the steps you can do to figure out if you might have too many yeast in your intestines. If you do, then take a look at my article called Kills Yeast, a brief guide that tells you what to do about it. Okay? All right. Let me go back here. That question, good luck to you. Hello, Kathleen. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thank you for hosting these wonderful webinars. You're welcome. What are your thoughts on the Lyme stop therapy for Lyme treatment? Also, what do you recommend for people who have autoimmune conditions when taking supplements such as reishi or ProBoost that activate the immune system? So first of all, about the second part there. So reishi and ProBoost turn on the cells that fight infection. They are not turning on the part of the immune system that actually attacks you as in autoimmune illness, okay? So those actually, I think those are okay to actually use. I usually do not see a flare up in autoimmune illness by doing the things that help boost the cell fighting, or the cells that fight viruses and Lyme, okay? So I think those would be okay to do. In terms of Lyme Stop, I think you're referring to Lyme Stop, which is administered by a practitioner in Idaho, Dr. Smith, who's a chiropractor. And it involves using magnet therapies as well as various herbal remedies as well too. You know, generally, there are some people that get benefit in that. I also see a lot of people that don't get great benefit from it too. So for some people, it could be the thing that works for them. All right. That's about all I can really say about it. All right. Good luck to you, Kathleen. I think that's the program you're referring to. Hello, Colleen. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Should Lyme patients avoid nightshade vegetables in our diets? And is there a test we can take to see if we're one of the people who are sensitive to nightshades? Also, is there a blood test we can take to determine what foods we are sensitive or allergic to? It's interesting with my webinars. There are nights that I get into themes of questions that will have a theme. Okay, so tonight it looks like one of the themes might be about food sensitivities, food allergies. I mentioned that earlier. Okay, so yes, you could do a blood test to see if you make antibodies against foods. Okay. And those blood tests are going to look to see if you have antibodies from two families. There's a family called IgE, and there's another family called IgG. Okay. Now, IgEs are the antibodies that circulate around your body, ready to attach to those things we're allergic to. And then they will attach to mast cells, causing those mast cells. So once they've attached to something we're allergic to, they then attach to mast cells, which release all those histamines. Okay. Those are IgEs. And when you make IgEs, those are the things you are truly allergic to, all right? So if you were to do your food allergy panel and you get some IgE elevations, those are the things you should eliminate, all right? However, these food allergy panels also look at things that you might have IgG antibodies against, all right? Now, IgGs are not the kind of antibodies that cause histamines to get released. It doesn't mean you're still not having some kind of an immune reaction against a food, but because foods go through our immune system, we might have some allergic reactions that are not necessarily what I would call allergy reactions, okay? So I think that sometimes the blood testing will overfind things that you might be sensitive to. So what I do, if I ever do blood testing, those things that you're making IgEs against, those things that you're truly allergic to, I want to pull out, okay? I want to remove them, all right? When it comes to your IgGs, what I'll do with those is I'll look at those studies, and I'll take those people that are, or those items they identify for which you are having mild to low amounts of IgGs, and I don't have you remove those at all. Those items that you have moderate to high moderate or a large amount of IgGs, then what I will do is I'll have the person eliminate those specific items for 3 weeks, and then one at a time, about every couple of days, add them back in and see, do you truly react against it, okay? So what can happen is when you eliminate a food item that you're sensitive to from your diet, and then you add it back in after 3 weeks, what happens is while you're on it, your immune system gets sensitized. It kind of turns down its reaction, okay? But then after you've been off of that item for a few weeks, the immune system is no longer sensitized, and it will have a much stronger reaction. So when you put things back in that you've eliminated, either by targeting the things to eliminate based on your IgG panel, or if you've done a full food elimination diet where you've removed everything that anyone could ever be sensitive or reactive to in your diet, and then you add it back in, if you know you are sensitive or reacting to something, if when you add it back in, you get a lot of symptoms of illness, like more fatigue or more body pain, all right? If you can clearly tell it's when you added that thing back in, that is something you should leave out of your diet, all right? All right, now what is the better way to see if you have food allergies? Is it to do this food allergy panel? Or is it to do this elimination, the full elimination diet like I've suggested? The food elimination diet is the best way to go, actually. First of all, you don't have to pay for the blood test, but it also is more accurate at determining the things that you are reacting to that might not even be picked up by this IgG, IgE food sensitivity panel that I was mentioning, okay? So again, that's probably the best way to wind up doing it, all right? All right. All right. Oh, in terms of testing for nightshades, the only way to really find out, are you reacting to nightshades, is pull them out and then add them back in 3 weeks and see. You'll learn that way. I haven't seen a specific test for it, okay? All right. Good luck to you, Colleen. Hello, Kim. Let's see. What do you think about hyperbaric oxygen therapy and UVL intravenous light therapy for treatment of Lyme disease? All right. So, by oxygen therapy, if you mean just breathe in oxygen as not part of hyperbaric oxygen, I don't think it does anything. If what you mean, though, is hyperbaric oxygen, where you're going into a deep dive tank where they pressurize all that oxygen and you're breathing in 100% oxygen, that actually might have the ability to kill Lyme germs, okay? All right. All right. Now, does it really work, though? So, and I'll talk about UVL in a minute. So, hyperbaric oxygen was kind of one of those vogue treatments about maybe 8 or 9 years ago. Actually, maybe longer, maybe more like about probably about 10 or 11 years ago. In the early, when I was first starting to treat Lyme, so I started treating Lyme back in 2004. And there were a lot of people that were getting tanks in their offices. They were getting hard pressure tanks. The hard shell tanks are ones that you can get a deep dive. You can go down to 2.4 atmospheres, okay? And I think what we quickly learned, and so what we were thinking would happen with all that pressure in the oxygen is oxygen pressurized would kill the germs. And that that pressure would also do a good job of forcing antibiotics deep into the tissues, and so we get better killing, okay? What we found out, though, is that the majority of people probably don't get much benefit at all from this. And so most of us eventually stop doing it, okay? Now, hyperbaric oxygen in somebody that has a lot of brain dysfunction, that hyperbaric oxygen, in addition to killing germs, has the ability of helping to do nerve repair and energy factory mitochondria repair in the brain, and can sometimes help. All right. So I've got a person that's really having severe cognitive issues. I've done various degrees of antibiotics and they're not getting anywhere. That's the kind of person I might do hyperbaric oxygen in. But as a useful way of germ killing, I'm just not that impressed with it over time. Okay. Now, both oxygen therapy and UVL intravenous therapy are forms of oxidizing medicines, okay? Oxidizing agents can damage germ coverings. They can also damage the DNA of the germ, okay? That's how they work. Now, there are studies, so my concern, though, about oxidizing agents is that they might also damage our own cell membranes, which are made up of fats, just like germ membranes are made up of fats, all right? Now, in theory, we are protected, though, because our bodies make antioxidants. Germs do not make antioxidants. That's why they're so susceptible, okay? But the problem is no one's done long-term studies to know if the oxidizing agents we make are enough to overcome the damage that could be happening to our cells, all right? So I believe in doing oxidizing agent medicines for limited bases, maybe for 8 treatments, in terms of UVL or hydrogen peroxide or ozone, those kind of oxidizing treatments. Those ones I would limit to no more than about 8 because I don't think we know about long-term safety with them. I'll be quite honest with you. In addition, I just don't see great benefits that occur when people do these oxidizing agent treatments, okay? Another way to do oxidizing medicine also is to, or oxidation medicine, is to do very high doses of vitamin C. So for instance, 30 grams to 50 grams. Okay, now I want you to think about that. When you take a vitamin C pill over the counter that you get, that could be maybe 1,000 milligrams. And sometimes people can take up to 10 of those. If you start getting above 10, people start getting diarrhea and cramping. So when you do the IV vitamin C at the high doses, if you do vitamin C at high doses, you got to do it IV actually, okay? That's the only way to get that in. And even that's an oxidizing agent. So vitamin C at low doses is an antioxidant. At high doses is an oxidizing agent, all right? But again, I see maybe people get benefit about 40% of the time. It's just not one of those places I go as a starting point. I think you can do more benefit by doing either herbal or prescription antibiotics, okay? All right. Thank you for that question, Kim. Hello, Eric. Let's see. How do I take MCP? I think that's MCP for the treatment of mold. Should I run Aspergillus IgG IgM if my ERMI came back at 13? I am sorry, I don't understand what MCP is. I'm trying to think of what that would stand for in terms of either a binder or something that people might use for mold. I'm not sure what you're referring to as MCP. In terms of your ERMI, yes, your ERMI everyone stands is a way of seeing if you have a lot of mold spores in your environment of the variety that might make harmful mold toxins. And at a score of 13, that suggests that you might have problems. The way that I would look to see if you have mold toxins is to see, are you really having mold toxins in you? And the way I would do that is to go use a lab called Real Time Labs out of Texas, where they will actually do studies to see, do you have mold toxins in you? Okay. And that's the lab that I would wind up using, actually. All right. Eric, thank you for that question. Let me just show you, because I didn't really get into mold toxin illness a lot. I just want to let you know for some well. So let me just show you, do a quick search here, because I'm not going to get into it right now, but take a look at in the Treat Lyme, and at Treat Lyme, there is a chapter I have on detoxification. Read my article, and I think there's a video that's there is a video that's part of that called Mold and Lyme Toxin Illness. It talks about what the problem is and how do you screen for it, and what do you do to remove those toxins when they get caught in you. Okay, so I take a look at that article. It's a pretty thorough article. Hello, Liz. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. So bite was in July of 2017. Symptoms started in November. Hampton's bite. I think that you're trying to tell me where you had it, actually. So yes, the Hamptons have a lot of Lyme. You said to start treatment as clinical signs, all check out, and bite is at the Hamptons. My doctor has started me on cefuroxime, 3 weeks to start. What do you think of that? Is this sufficient? Probably not. I'm sorry. So the problem is with a tick bite, and even though this could be a recommendation, I'm not even sure the CDC recommends that, but a better way to go with a tick bite would be to use a tetracycline, like a doxycycline, minocycline, or even tetracycline. The reason those are a better first antibiotic to start with is that when that tick bit you, not only might it have transmitted Lyme, it might have transmitted some other tick-borne infections. Those other tick-borne infections we call the co-infections, and often in a more acute setting, being on doxycycline will take care of some of those, like anaplasma or Ehrlichia. Also, the tetracyclines treat 2 of 3 forms of the Lyme germ. So the Lyme germ actually exists in you in 3 forms. One form is the spirochete. That's the thing with the corkscrew. Another way that they live in you is as a microscopic cyst form. And then there's a form of the germ that can actually lose its covering and move inside of the cells. That's called intracellular Lyme. Okay, cefuroxime probably only works on the spirochete. And that is because the way that it works is it's preventing the covering of the spirochete from repairing itself as it develops holes. And so if it makes it so it can't repair those holes, and eventually the germ basically develops so many holes that as it grows, it bursts, basically, okay? All right, so you're only treating one form of the germ with cefuroxime. The doxycycline, the way that it works, it gets inside the spirochete and limits protein production of the spirochete. It also can do the same thing with Lyme that's living inside your cells. It limits its ability to make proteins. Basically, the germ can't grow and it eventually dies, okay? So you're hitting 2 out of 3 forms on the tetracyclines. In addition, you're picking up some of the other germs that might have been transmitted. So in an acute setting, or even in something that had been happening more recently, I'd prefer tetracyclines. I'd prefer either doxycycline as 100 milligrams, 1 or 2 twice a day, or a minocycline 100 milligrams twice a day, or tetracycline 500 milligrams 3 times a day. And in addition, given that you got this bite back in July of 2017, there's a good chance that a lot of your Lyme has converted into cyst forms as well. And the way you can cover for those is to use the herb grapefruit seed extract. It's a 250 milligram pill, and you would want to take 1 pill 2 times a day to help with that. Okay? All right. So those are my thoughts. Good luck getting some help with that too. All right. All right. Hello, Kim. Let's see. What do you think about hyperbaric ox? Oh, we already did that one. Hello, Tom. Let's see. Dr. Ross, how might you address GI palsy in the Lyme patient? Would LDN help, or what would help resolve severe IBS issues possibly caused by Lyme or co-infections? Okay, so I want to talk in terms of terms here to make sure that you and I are talking the same thing here, okay? So IBS technically means irritable bowel syndrome. And anytime we use the word syndrome in medicine means that the people that gave you that diagnosis don't know what the heck is causing it, okay? So syndromes mean it's a constellation of symptoms, but we don't know the cause of it. So multiple sclerosis, for instance, is a syndrome because there's multiple reasons it can happen to a person, but often we don't know the cause, although for some, Lyme is the cause, okay? In which case we shouldn't call it multiple sclerosis, then we should call it Lyme, all right? What happens in true irritable bowel syndrome is that you have a lot of gassiness, bloating, sometimes there's diarrhea, sometimes there's constipation, okay? That is technically irritable bowel syndrome. And that when your doctors evaluate you, they're not finding any other reasons to explain that, all right? Now, irritable bowel syndrome, if that's what you've got, which is a lot of gassiness, bloating, sometimes diarrhea, sometimes constipation, a lot of cramping, sometimes the cause of that actually is too many yeast living in your intestines. Also, sometimes the cause of that is parasites, even if you've had stool testing done. If you've got a lot of those symptoms like I'm just describing, sometimes the stool test for parasites miss them. They're really hard to see. Basically, we're trying to look to see if you have parasites in your intestines. We're taking some of your poop and we're smearing on a microscope slide. We're trying to see if we can see parasite parts. They're hard to see, all right? So often you can't see them. So if you've done a lot of international travel, or you've drank well water quite often, there's a possibility you might have intestinal parasites giving some of those symptoms too, all right? So if your symptoms are those true irritable bowel symptoms, which would be variation of constipation going to diarrhea and a lot of gassiness and bloating, step 1, follow my recommendations about how do you treat yeast. And if you don't so you're going to have to look at the Treat Lyme. You're going to have to probably pay for a subscription and read some of the information that I've put there, okay? But I don't want to take the time to go through all of it now, but the information is at Treat Lyme, okay? And after a month or so of treating yeast, if a lot of those symptoms are not better, then you might consider treating for parasites. And I do have an article about that too, but generally there's a prescription medicine that I like people to use, which is called Alinea. It's a universal anti-parasite medicine. That means it can kill a variety of parasites. You don't even need to know what the parasite is, because the way Alinea works is it can kill about anything, okay? And I have people take that as a 500 milligram pill 3 times a day. So try to clear yeast first. That doesn't work, then do Alinea, okay? All right, now, if by irritable bowel you actually mean palsy of the gut, palsy means that the nerves are not working in the gut, and that basically what you primarily are going to have is more or less constipation, okay? So palsy of the gut means that the nerves that cause the muscles to contract that are supposed to be squeezing your stool through are not working well, okay? And they've been infected, all right? So how do you treat that? Well, the main thing is you got to treat the infections. And for palsy of the gut, if it's a true palsy where you're just constipated, not much is moving through easily, and that kind of situation, make sure you treat Lyme. Also, look to see if you might have Bartonella. So take a look in the How to Diagnose chapter in the Treat Lyme book, or at treatlyme.net, Treat Lyme, I'm calling it now, and see in the How to Diagnose chapter, there is an article called It Could Be Bartonella or Babesia. Read that article. It talks to you about how do you figure out if you might have Bartonella. And if you do, you need to treat that. And take a look at my article called Kills Bartonella, which you'll find in the Infection Treatment Plans chapter, okay? Actually, I'll show you all this in just a minute, all right? Follow the steps with that, okay? So number one, for true palsy, which means nothing's moving, the muscles are not getting the signaling they need because the nerves have been injured, treat for Lyme, probably treat for Bartonella. Number two, you've got to do things to really loosen up your stools and try to stimulate those muscles to contract. And so one of the things you can do is be on a lot of magnesium. You can take up to about 600 milligrams at night. Magnesium, when you take it, attracts water into the intestines that makes things mushier, okay? Number two, you could do an over-the-counter medicine called Miralax, which is artificial fiber. I mean, it's plastic particles, basically. But it does stimulate the intestines and helps hold more water and will irritate the lining of the intestines so the muscles will contract to squeeze things through. You can do 1 or 2 Miralax at a time, all right? The other thing you could experiment with to try to get your bowels moving is high-dose vitamin C. Excuse me just a minute. It's my allergy season here. We're starting to get green here in Seattle already. And so unfortunately, if you hear me a little scratchy tonight, that's what's going on here. Anyhow, so in addition to that magnesium, from an herbal standpoint, you could also take high-dose vitamin C. As I mentioned earlier, if you start getting up around the 10,000 gram range, vitamin C often will loosen your stools up, okay? So I probably start at about 5,000 or 6,000 grams. If that doesn't work, then add 1,000 grams a day in addition to your magnesium that I was just mentioning. That might be a way of getting things loosened up too. Okay? All right. Let me do a quick screen share here. I'm going to show you a few things. Okay, so in terms of what to do, try to see. I think I even have an article. Let's see here. I'm going to look at stomachs and intestines. That's my chapter on stomach and intestine. You might want to take a look at my article called Stomach and Intestine Problems, okay? Also my article on how to kill parasites. In terms of yeast, do you have yeast? Take a look at my article, Do You Have Yeast? Okay. Those would be some things to take a look at. So I've got some articles up that might help you. Okay. All right. Let me go back here. Good luck to you. Thank you for that question. Hello, Liz. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. So bite was in July of 2017. Symptoms started in, oh, we already did that one. And that one too. Why are these all showing up here still? I am supposed to be getting rid of them. Or people have written their questions multiple times. One of the two. All right, this looks like a new one. Let's see. Hi, Randy. Let's see. I have all the symptoms of Babesia, extreme muscle weakness, fatigue, frontal headache, hoarse voice, hurts to swallow, and talk. Been on Cryptolepis, 20 drops 3 times a day, and Berber and Panella. Should I take Banderol Cemento too? Don't want antibiotics. How about artemisinin? Does that help and how much? Thanks for your help. Okay. So, first of all, Brandy, I don't know from what you've written here whether you have Babesia or not. You said you have all the symptoms. So the main symptoms would be drenching night sweats, like soaking the bed night sweats, panic and anxiety attacks, air hunger, feeling like you can't get enough air in from time to time, being in balance, feeling off balance, like you need to hold on to a wall as you walk. Sometimes people with Babesia have lots of deja vu experiences, okay? And then Babesia can cause imbalance in your adrenaline, anti-adrenaline system, which can give you periods of racing of your heart. It can also make it so you feel hot 1 minute, cold the next minute. Sometimes you can get a dry cough with it as well, too. And then also, you do get headaches in the front of your head, okay? So the kind of symptoms you wrote here, the only one I see here that really makes me think of Babesia could be your frontal headache. The extreme muscle weakness can be part of Lyme. The hurts to swallow could be Lyme, could be yeast, it could be a lot of things, all right? So I can't really tell what's going on with you by what you briefly wrote. If you want a really good opinion, feel free to sign up for one of my online consult events, okay? And I'll show you how to do that here in a minute, where I can help you kind of tease this apart a little bit more, okay? But if you really do have Babesia, one thing I would do is I would try to get your cryptolepis to a higher dose, actually. Or I don't think 20 drops is going to be enough. I usually like to have people take 5 milliliters, which is a teaspoonful, 3 times a day. And I think 20 drops is going to be less than that, unless you've counted it out. I may be wrong. Okay. So, and if that is not working well enough herbally, then yes, you might want to add artemisinin to that. The artemisinin I would take as a 100 milligram pill, and I would start it at 2 pills 3 times a day, take 3 days on, and then take 11 days off. The reason you do that, the reason you take it off for a number of days, is that actually the intestines develop an enzyme that can deactivate the artemisinin. All right. And so you need to be off of it for a number of days so that enzyme will go away. I usually will. So what I do is on the days people take the artemisinin, I have them take quite a bit. But you can get quite a severe reaction in terms of killing reaction, which can give more fatigue, more air hunger, maybe more sweats on the days you use it, okay? So I usually build up based on your tolerance. So I start at 2 pills of the 100 milligram pills 3 times a day, 3 days on, 11 days off. If you tolerate that, then the next time you go up to 3 100 milligram pills 3 times a day, 3 days on, 11 days off, then up to 4, and then finally up to 5 pills 3 times a day, 4 days on, or for 3 days on, that is, and 11 days off, okay? That's kind of how I do my regimens. Another option you might want to look at if you really do have Babesia is, instead of the cryptolepis, would be to do a formula called a CSA, which stands for Cryptolepis, Sida acuta, and Alcornia. You can, and if you were to do a mix like that, that would also be 5 milliliters 3 times a day. Okay. In terms of Banderol Cemento, yeah, it sounds like you may have Lyme, but I don't know enough from the question here to say whether that's a good idea for you or not. Okay. So let me do a quick screen share here. Section here. All right. And this describes a service that I offer where you can visit with me online no matter where you live in the world. Okay. And this gives you the ability to get my opinion. I can ask you lots of questions, and then I can come up with ideas that either you can do on your own or that you can implement with your physician if they require prescriptions, okay? Read all the way through this to see if it's really for you, but I have a number of appointment spots that I leave open so that I can get people in to help with this, okay? So you might want to take a look at that too, okay? All right. So that's open to anyone. Anyone that wants to do that can do that, all right? All right. A question, Randy. Good luck to you. Hello, Jeannie. Let's see. Good evening. My question is about Lyme testing. I want to order the Immunoblot test, but when I look at the IGeneX website, it seems there are two choices. One is for a urine test and one is for the blood test. Since you say Lyme doesn't live in the blood, should I order the urine test? No. And actually, they use that word. I know. Okay, so you want to do the blood test, okay? The urine test is, although they call it an Immunoblot, is I'll say briefly, it's a different kind of test, okay? The urine test actually, well, I'll just leave it at that. It's not the kind of test you want. The one that I've been talking about and writing about that has a good ability to find Lyme is the Immunoblot of your blood. And what the Immunoblot is doing is it's looking to see if you have antibodies in your blood that you will make they'll get in the blood even if it's in your tissues, okay? My comments about Lyme not living in the blood are more about another type of Lyme test called a PCR test, where you're looking for the DNA of Lyme, the actual germ in your blood. And the problem is, to find the DNA of the germ, you need to have Lyme in the blood to measure its DNA. And the ability for a PCR DNA test to find Lyme is only 30%. And the reason we think that is that Lyme doesn't easily live in the blood. And that's because oxygen in the blood is toxic to Lyme. So Lyme likes to live in tissues with poor blood flow. Now, the antibody reaction you have, your immune system developing antibodies, which antibodies are proteins that the immune system uses to attach to a germ. And once those antibodies are stuck on a germ, they kind of act like a big signaling device, tower, cell phone tower that sends out signals to the cells in the immune system that gobble up germs, saying, I got a germ, come get it. That's kind of what an antibody does, okay? And you don't need to have Lyme in the blood for your immune system to develop those antibodies, all right? Now, the Immunoblot, which is a way of looking to see if antibodies attached to the Lyme germ, has the IGeneX method of doing it, according to their what are called validation studies, where they've gone out to see how effective is their test at finding known cases of the illness. Their studies say it will find it 91% of the time. The Western blot, which is another way to see if you have antibodies that stick on Lyme germs, their method of doing it will find it about 75 to 80% of the time, okay? And the difference between the Western blot antibody test and the Immunoblot antibody test is this. So in a Western blot test, what we do is IGeneX grows a couple strains of Lyme, and then they kill them, and they take all their proteins off, and they take those proteins, they put them on a test strip, and then they distribute those proteins into the test strip based on what they weigh. So all the proteins that weigh 18 kilodaltons, which is band 18, all fall out at the same place. And all the proteins that weigh 23 to 25 kilodaltons, band 23-25, fall out at the same place, okay? All right, and then we look to see, do you have antibodies that stick on those proteins, all right? Now, in an Immunoblot, what we've done is they genetically grow those proteins in the lab. They're not growing Lyme germs. They're genetically engineered cells to grow those proteins in the lab. And in fact, what they've also done is they've modified a few of those proteins. I think 31, 34, and 41. They've modified them to remove protein segments and amino acid segments that are also found on viruses. And so they've removed those sequences so that when an antibody actually sticks on one of those proteins, it truly is one that sticks on Lyme. It's not one that falsely attaches to a Lyme protein, because that Lyme protein happens to have some amino acids in it that are similar to those found on viruses that you might have had in you, okay? So on the Western blot, where you're using the whole Lyme protein, the ones that stick on 31, 34, and 41 sometimes can actually be made against viruses that are attaching to those amino acid sequences on those proteins that are also found on viruses, all right? In the Immunoblot, when they grow these proteins genetically in the lab, they have removed those protein sequences that might give you a false positive Lyme test, all right? So that's what the big difference is. Okay, good luck to you, Jeannie. I appreciate that question. Hello, Alexandrosi. Thank you so much for doing this. My question is about how to measure recovery accurately. Should I have regular schedule of blood work established for me in Canada? That means sending my blood work to the US and Europe? Should I plan to submit at least twice per year? All right. So I'm sorry, I keep rubbing my nose. My allergies are just not doing well right now. I don't think there's a good test in Lyme to see where you are. It's not about testing. It's more about what do your symptoms tell you, okay? And the reason is, so the test you're sending to Europe probably is to Armin Labs. And what Armin is going to be doing is they're going to be measuring something called an ELISpot, which looks to see, do you have a type of white blood cell called a T cell in you that reacts when it is exposed to Lyme proteins? And if you do, we take that as a sign that you have active Lyme, that your white blood cells are still fighting it, okay? And if you don't, you could make the argument that Lyme is out of you. However, Lyme may not get out of you. In fact, Lyme can hide periodically in ways that your T cells can't see them, so they'll stop reacting. So you might get a test that's negative, but it doesn't prove the Lyme germ is out of you, okay? So there's really no way on the Armin lab ELISpot to tell, is it in or out of you, all right? Regarding antibodies, like those that we measure on the Western blot through IGeneX or the immunoblot through IGeneX, the problem with the antibody test is once you make antibodies, you may keep making them forever, even if the germ, well, actually, I don't think the germ ever comes out. So you're going to make them forever, all right? However, your immune system periodically would just stop making them because the germ goes into hiding and it doesn't make as many, all right? But that doesn't mean the germ isn't there. So this phenomenon where the germ hides periodically in ways that either your T cells or your cells that make antibodies can't see it is known as sequestration. It sequesters itself. It hides away. So getting negative testing of any variety doesn't mean it's gone. It just means that it may not be seeing it, okay? So in my experience, the best way to find out how you're doing is follow what your symptoms tell you. Unfortunately, to this day, that still is our best way of figuring out what's going on with your treatment, okay? All right. Good luck to you. Hello, CJ. Let's see here. Hold on here a minute, everyone. I gotta check something. Okay. Let's see. Thank you for all you do. You're welcome. I've heard that Alka-Seltzer Gold is good for treating Herx symptoms. That is that true? If so, how does it work? Also, what does over-the-counter Claritin do for Lyme patients? All right. So Alka-Seltzer Gold, in theory, can can decrease acid, making your blood more alkaline or more basic. And that could help with Herx reactions. I know some of my patients try it and they get benefit. I don't find much benefit from it. I find there's other things that work better. And if you want to know what those are, that's the curcumin I mentioned earlier tonight, glutathione. There's a whole article I can show you of the other ways of lowering those cytokines that work better than the Alka-Seltzer Gold. But in theory, that's how it works, okay? All right. Claritin has had some research showing that it, I'm going to blank on this one right now. It can interfere, I think, with some protein metabolism of Lyme. I'm not remembering the exact mechanism. And so people have wondered whether it would help with Lyme treatment. As I've tried it in the past, when the research about Claritin first came out, and I'm sorry, I'm just blanking right now on the mechanism by which it works. I did try Claritin with a number of patients. I just didn't find it that useful, okay? So I generally don't use that, okay? All right. So let me do a quick screen share here. My book or in Treat Lyme, in my chapters tab, take a look at my chapter on Herxheimer and cytokines. And there's two things you can either read. You can read this article called Control Cytokines, A Guide to Fix Lyme Symptoms in the Immune System, where I walk through a number of ways that you can lower those cytokines, okay? Or take a look at my article called Herxheimer Die-Off Reaction, Inflammation Run Amok, okay? Both of those will give you the steps you need that you can take to lower cytokines, all right? Thank you for that question. Let's see. Hi, Kate. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Wondering what GI test you feel is most complete and helpful when cause of GI symptoms is unknown. Boy, that I can't say. And the reason I can't say, I need to know more what your actual GI symptoms are so I can help target you in a better way. Kate, you might want to take a look at one of my one-to-one consults that I mentioned earlier. Okay? All right. Good luck to you. All right. Hi, Kate. I don't know if it's the same Kate. Let's see. If swollen lymph nodes are not budging despite lots of lymph treatment, does this mean infection is still going strong, or could they just stay swollen permanently? It's a good question. So sometimes our lymph nodes, after they've been swollen from infection, can be scarred in an open position or in an enlarged position. Okay. And to be able to really advise you on that, that's one of those things you almost need a physical exam. So scarred lymph nodes, ones that are hard, chronically hard, and scarred in an open or enlarged position, have a certain feel to them. Okay. It's hard for me to say. All right. But the other thing it could mean is that you have ongoing infection, and the infection that is known for giving enlarged lymph nodes is Bartonella. So I would take a look at my articles on how to diagnose Bartonella. You'll find it in the How to Diagnose chapter. It's the one called It Could Be Bartonella or Babesia, the Signs and Symptoms. Take a look at that and see, do you meet a lot of the criterion for Bartonella? And if you do, you might want to start treating for Bartonella. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Kate. Hello, Genius. What do you think about GABA for adrenal support? I don't know. I've never used it for adrenal support before, and I haven't seen any literature that supports its use that way. So I have to look into that. These webinars, I learn things sometimes. People bring ideas to me of things I've never thought of before, and you might have just brought one. So I'll have to go ahead and take a look at that and see. But I don't know. I can't comment on that one right now. All right. Good luck to you. Thank you for that question. Hello, Rhonda. Let's see. Hi from Ontario, Canada. Hello. Hello from Seattle, Washington. And in the United States, that is. Yep. Let's see. I have Igenix, Immunoblot, Bartonella serum. Let's see. I have Igenix, Immunoblot, Bartonella serum, less than 40. IgM 41 is indeterminate. IgG 28 is positive. 41 indeterminate. 93 indeterminate. Babesia and possibly BART. I had a left thalamic stroke in 2015. The CAT scan reveals demyelination, which is presenting as peripheral neuropathy. Did not get diagnosed until December 2017. Wow. Okay. So your testing is not positive or negative for Lyme. I'm sorry. That's the best I can really say about it. Those indeterminates that you're finding at 93 and 41, those could be that you're making antibodies, but they're not at a level that they are sufficiently being detected. In other words, Lyme can give you immune suppression, and Lyme can hide, makes it hard for the immune system to react. And so sometimes we make a weak amount of antibodies, and so they're really hard to detect. So that indeterminate at both of those positions is either some dirt that showed up during the testing process, or you are making antibodies, but they're barely being detected. Now, if that indeterminate at 41 really is an antibody, and if it is very much an antibody at 93, then those, I would call those a positive test. So having antibodies on your IgG on an immunoblot at 41 and 93 that are truly antibodies, not indeterminate, but truly antibodies, I would call that a positive test then. The one thing that you might want to do to look at this further is consider doing one of the Armin ELISpot tests, just because that is another way of looking to see if your immune system is reacting. And I would do their Lyme ELISpot test just to see if you can get a positive test that way. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Rhonda. Hello, Barbara. See, dear Dr. Ross, my MRI shows low oxygen in the brain. Do you have any suggestions on how it can increase oxygen levels? I'm not sure what you mean by that, because an MRI actually technically looks at your structure. It's an architecture test. It doesn't measure oxygen levels. So I'm not sure why somebody has given you that interpretation. All right. So I don't know how to comment to that, actually. All right. Good luck to you, Barbara. Hello, Kim. Let's see. What is transfer factor multi-immune for? Okay. All right. So transfer factor multi-immune kind of just globally turns on the immune system. It doesn't target it for any one infection. It turns on a type of cell called natural killer cells, which can kill various kinds of germs, but it doesn't target them. I guess that's the explanation I would give you on that. All right. Hello, Marcy. Let's see. Yeast can be driven out more quickly by doing self-massage for the colon, encouraging increased peristalsis. Very effective. Marcy, I don't know about that, but it's an interesting idea, and maybe it would help some people. Thank you for that comment. Hello, Katie. Let's see. Can you tell me which infections are most likely to cause sudden onset OCD symptoms and separation anxiety? So the one that would have the greatest possibility of doing that would be Bartonella. It's possible Lyme could do it too. But when I see people that have kind of more extreme psychiatric issues or problems as part of their Lyme, think Bartonella. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Katie. Hello, Brenda. Let's see. Sorry to hear you had problems with your medical board. Me too, believe me. You should move your practice to Florida. We would love to have you down here. Thank you for everything you do to help people with Lyme disease. It's very much appreciated. Brenda, thank you. For those of you that don't know, my medical board is come after me for managing Lyme disease and getting somebody well. So a person, they had concerns over how I helped a person that had mold toxicity and Lyme who had been in a hospice unit, dying basically, get better. And I had to do some things that they didn't understand. And so they've had some concerns and they're upset with me because I do alternative medicine in a way that they don't understand. But hopefully they're going to go away. But yeah, that has been going on. It's not the first time I've been investigated. When you manage Lyme disease, you'll get investigated. And most of us that manage Lyme in the country probably have been investigated at one time or another. But thank you for that for that support. I appreciate it. Hello, Katie. Let's see. My practitioner thinks that I may have an unspecified virus which is exacerbating my neuro-Lyme co-infection symptoms. Is there a broad system botanical antiviral that you would recommend? So I guess there are a couple of things you might want to consider, and both of you can read about these in an article I have about how to diagnose and how to treat viruses. Okay, so one of the tests that I will do that I'm relying on more and more to see if people might have too many viruses in them is to do a blood test called a nagalase. And the lab that does that here in the States is called Health Diagnostics out of New Jersey. You have to contact them to get one of their kits. And what a nagalase is, it's an enzyme that's made in the covering of viruses. And so viruses, if you have more viruses in you, you'll have more nagalase. Okay, so it's kind of a way of measuring your viral load. And you don't have to necessarily know what the virus is. You just see if you have too many viruses. Okay, so viruses gets to be a little tricky as to whether you should treat them or not, because a lot of viruses like the Epstein-Barr virus, cytomegalovirus, human herpes virus type 6, which is a respiratory virus, parvovirus B19, Coxsackie virus. These are all viruses that can live in healthy people. Right? So just having evidence by seeing that a person has antibodies against those viruses, does not prove that the germ has gotten active in a way that the immune system isn't controlling it. Right? So just like we live with germs on our skin, we can cohabitate with our viruses, and in a lot of people, they do not cause problems. All right. Now, in Lyme, I know a number of my colleagues will test for virus infections to see if people have antibodies right at the beginning of treatment. I do not. And the reason I don't is even if those viruses are there, it doesn't mean they're active. And if they got active, it means they got active because of immune suppression, probably caused by the Lyme disease being there. All right. So my approach with viruses is to get the Lyme taken care of, try to start treating Lyme, do all the things I do in the Ross Lyme support protocol, like get sleep, lower your cytokines, get yeast out, etc. Do all those steps. And if you're about 6 months, 9 months, even a year in, and you're not making much headway, then it's time to start looking for other things that might be holding you back, of which viral infections could be one of those, okay? And I don't do testing for specific viruses, again, because having elevated antibodies doesn't tell me whether it's growing too much. The only way I have found to find if it's growing too much is to measure this enzyme called nagalase, okay? If your nagalase comes back elevated, then I do think it's a good idea to treat for chronic viruses. And what I like using is a multi-pronged approach. One of those is to use olive leaf extract. It's a 500 milligram pill, one pill 3 times a day. And if you don't Herx on that after about a week, you can go up to 2 pills 3 times a day. And if you don't Herx on that after another week, you can go up to 3 pills 3 times a day. Okay, but you got to watch out, get pretty severe Herx on that. The other thing I like to do is to stimulate the antiviral part of the immune system. And for that, I like using reishi mushrooms. I mentioned that earlier tonight, 400 milligrams 3 times a day. Okay, that's what my approach is. If you want to read or even print off an article that you can show your practitioner about this, and take a look at my article called When and How to Treat Chronic Viruses, a brief guide. Okay, I talk about how do you diagnose them, and I also talk about what you can take to go after them as well too. Hello, Michelle. Let's see, will nystatin work by itself to kill yeast, or do I need something else with it to kill yeast? So I have found if there are too many yeast in your intestines, if you have yeast overgrowth, that nystatin by itself is just not strong enough to get rid of them. Okay, that's been what my experience is. And so usually I will combine it with something. The strongest thing I'll combine it with would be to use a stronger systemic antifungal. That would be something like diflucan. Would be one. Itraconazole could be another one. Usually use or maybe Lamisil. Use those for about a month in addition to the nystatin. Okay, that's one option. The other thing you could do is combine your nystatin with an herbal protocol and herbal antimicrobials. And these days, more and more, my favorite is to use a product called Capri Plus, which is a combination of caprylic acid, some rosemary oil, and garlic, actually. And that is something I would do as 2 pills twice a day. I'll combine that with nystatin. The nystatin I like using is a 500,000 international unit, 2 pills 2 times a day. Okay, now the diflucan or itraconazole or Lamisil with your nystatin is going to tend to work more quickly, usually about a month. Okay, versus if you do the herbal antibiotic option that I just mentioned, or antifungal option, along with the nystatin, it's going to be about 3 months or so. Okay, now with all of these options, make sure you're taking lots of probiotics. Okay, I usually like to have people take about 100 billion cultures. All right? All right. Thanks for that question, Michelle. And good luck. Hello, Ashley. Let's see. Thank you so much for hosting these chats. So grateful. I am in Lyme treatment and constantly getting fevers, which make me feel even more terrible. Any way to get rid of them other than Tylenol? So the fevers are probably more cytokine related. And so I would work with things that lower cytokines. So cytokine, like when you get the flu, for instance, the reason you feel badly is that your white blood cells release a lot of cytokines. And they make you achy, and they can cause you to have those temperature spikes that you get with the flu. Same thing happens in Lyme, all right? The other thing, though, to keep in mind, if you keep getting increased temperatures, sometimes Babesia does that as well, too. Babesia causes a lot of instability in the anti-adrenaline system, okay? And so take a look at my article about how to diagnose Babesia. You might want to see, do you have Babesia? And if you do, you should be treating that as well, too, all right? But I would probably look at curcumin, 500 milligrams, even up to 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day, see if that will help you with some of the temperature. Yeah, that's probably what I would look at doing. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, Ashley. Thank you for that question. Hi, Michelle. Is there a cheaper curcumin that would still work for inflammation? I actually don't know. I mean, the things that I offer at my store, I mean, there's 2 forms. There's a product called Curcumin Pure by Research Nutritionals, or the Mariva 500. And either of those work well, but I trust the quality of those products. And sometimes when you have the problem with lower cost herbs often is they're using lower cost ingredients, which often means they're using things that may not work as well. Okay. So just keep that in mind. So I'm not sure what I would recommend other than those 2. Okay. All right. Thanks for that question, Michelle. So, Jeannie, I think I answered this earlier. The immunoblot you want to get is the IGeneX, immunoblot IgM, and IgG. That's it. Just that. Okay? All right. Good luck to you. Oh, not the urine one. It's the blood one. Hello, Marcy. I know that you've left a number of messages here. Yes, Marcy, I do believe that lymphatic massage can help some patients with Lyme. I, however, am not finding it as universally successful as you are suggesting in some of your text messages or chat messages to me here. Okay. But yeah, for some people, it can do great. And so I appreciate the comments you've been making here tonight. And so if anyone's looking for a lymphatic massage specialist, you might want to try Marcy. I don't know where you're located, actually, but I will tell you it works well for some people and some people it doesn't. But it's something, as in Lyme, there's lots of ways to skin this cat. So for some people, that might do well for them. So if you're seeking out a massage special or a lymphatic massage specialist, might want to look up Marcy for that. Okay. All right. All right, let's see here. Let's see. Hello, Alexander. Let's see, just a comment. Thank you for your earlier reply, and please hold fast against the medical board. I am, believe me. We're even constructing my medical board has. I've dealt with that initial complaint, and I'm almost done wrapping up the things they wanted me to do for that. But I had to create some papers that I had to write to them about thyroid management and about some other things. And they had me in for a face-to-face meeting and really just decided they didn't like me because of all the alternative medicine stuff I did. They tried to claim that most of the benefit I get with my patients is all placebo effect. And one of the doctors even looked at me and said, given all that alternative medicine stuff you do, we don't even know why you call yourself a doctor. I mean, that's how negative my board was. And so what they've done is they're trying to find something wrong in my practice now. So they've decided they want to come in and do a random audit of about 20 records in my practice. And so we have told them no. We told them you can't do that. And the reason we told them you can't do that is we think it's a violation of the US Constitution, actually. So we're even doing a constitutional challenge to keep me practicing here. And what we basically have said is that the Constitution protects against illegal search and seizure. And the courts have been very clear over time that when you go in and search for somebody, you've got to have good cause. And because they don't have a new complaint, we're telling them there's no good cause. You can't just decide that one board member doesn't like the way I look and come after me, basically. So we're fighting it. And I'm holding out good hope here, and I appreciate that. So thank you very much. Hello, Rhonda. Let's see. I have tried herbal antimicrobial and 4 IV glutathione treatments, but do not feel better. Would you recommend wildcraft herbs for Babesia, Mariva 500 SF, and magnesium citramate? Yeah, I recommend them. The problem is I would need to know more specifically about what's happening with you to find out what is the best thing for you to do, okay? So if you want to, I could help you with that. And the way to go ahead and do that would be to look at one of my one-to-one medical consults. I think I showed you the tab to do that earlier at Treat Lyme. Okay? All right. All right. Let's see. All right, everyone. That's it for me for tonight. It's been great being here with you. Next week is a free week for me. I'm gonna not do a webinar. I like doing these, but every now and then I need a week off from them. So we'll take that weeks off, and then after that, we'll probably do 3 in a row after that. Okay. So it's been good to be here. Tomorrow morning, in your email, take a look at or somewhere around 6 to 6:30 in the morning, you will get an email from me saying that the recording is ready. Okay. Also in that email, I will have the sign up for the next series of webinars. We'll do 3 in a row in April. And so take a look for that sign up as well too. And feel free to share all this work that we're doing. Okay. So send out those emails. When I send them to you, forward them on to other people you think might benefit. Here in a second, I'm going to transfer you from me over to Treat Lyme. And I'm going to take you to the page where you can learn about how you sign up and subscribe to the Treat Lyme book to get all that great information that I have there. I appreciate your support financially when you do that by buying subscriptions. That allows me to do site upgrades like I'm doing. So again, you're going to see a redone site that I think is going to be more usable. And it gives me a chance to take time to rewrite those articles that many of you find useful as well too, and to do these webinars. All right. Good night, everyone. Good seeing you here tonight.